Case 1. Brandon Gonzalves Jr. was 22 years old, and he lived with his older brother, Gerard Gonzalves Jr., who was 30. The brothers had lived together for a long time, but they did not agree on many things. They had strong arguments about their personal beliefs, choices, and how each wanted to live. These arguments grew bigger over time, and their home became a place filled with stress and frustration. On July 10, 2012, everything reached a dangerous point inside their home in West Palm Beach. That morning, police later said that Brandon used a knife to hurt Gerard many times. The medical examiner reported that Gerard was stabbed 69 times, which showed how severe the attack was. After Gerard lost his life, Brandon left the house. According to police reports, he took Gerard's truck when he left. This caused officers to search for him right away because they believed he was in danger of hurting himself or others. For 3 days, police looked for Brandon across different areas of Florida. On July 13, 2012, officers found Brandon in the truck he had taken. He was arrested without a struggle. At the time of his arrest, officers said Brandon spoke about long-lasting disagreements between him and his brother, especially disagreements linked to their personal beliefs. Police confirmed that these arguments had been going on for a long time and caused a lot of emotional stress in the home. After Brandon was arrested, he was charged with first-degree murder. He was taken to jail while detectives continued their work. The case quickly spread through local news stations in Florida. Many people could not understand how two brothers who shared the same home and family could reach a point where a life was lost in such a painful way. During the legal process, doctors studied Brandon's mental health. Reports show that he had been struggling emotionally before the tragedy. Court records explain that the judge had to decide not only what happened on July 10th, but also what was happening in Brandon's mind at the time of the attack. By March 2013, the judge made a final decision. Brandon was found not guilty by reason of insanity. This means the court believed Brandon was not in a stable state of mind when the attack happened, and that his mental condition made it impossible for him to fully understand his actions. Because of this ruling, Brandon was not sent to a normal prison. Instead, the judge ordered him to stay in a secure mental health facility where he would receive long-term treatment. He was not given a release date. The court said he would remain there as long as doctors believed he could still be a danger to himself or others. This kind of order can last for many years, and sometimes even for life. Gerard's family shared memories of him through local news reports. They described him as caring and friendly, someone who worked hard and tried to help others. His loss left a deep sadness for everyone who knew him. Community members in Florida were also shaken. Many people said they wished the brothers had received help earlier, before their arguments grew into something neither of them could control. Before we proceed to the next case, please support my channel by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Thank you very much. Case 2. Fatiha Marzan and her younger sister Seima lived together in their family home in Orlando, Florida. They grew up in the same busy household, surrounded by siblings and relatives who expected the two young women to support each other. But in September 2022, their lives took a sudden and heartbreaking turn that shocked their community. Fatiha was 21 years old and Seima was 20. They shared chores, routines, and the close spaces of a family home. Yet a private conflict involving a long-distance relationship slowly pushed them apart, leading to a night that ended with Seima losing her life. According to police records and later reports, Fatiha believed that Seima had formed a close emotional bond with her long-distance boyfriend. This was a man Fatiha communicated with online, and she believed Seima had begun to talk to him in secret. These thoughts made her feel angry, confused, and deeply hurt. Instead of asking for help or stepping away from the situation, she allowed her anger to grow quietly. 2 weeks before the incident, she took a serious step that changed the course of her life. She went online, bought a dagger, and waited for it to arrive. She kept the weapon hidden in her room while she watched the tension between herself and Seima grow stronger in her mind. On September 26, 2022, the family went to sleep after a normal day at home. The house was quiet. During those late hours, Fatiha walked into Seima's room with the hidden dagger. Seima was resting, unaware of what was about to happen. Police reports later confirmed that Fatiha used the dagger to stab Seima 3 or 4 times in the chest, aiming toward her heart. Seima could not survive the wounds. The attack lasted only moments, but those moments changed everything for the Marzan family. Soon after the stabbing, Fatiha stayed inside the bedroom next to her sister. Reports say she remained there for a period of time before finally calling emergency services. When the call came through, first responders rushed to the home. They found Seima on the floor without any signs of life. Fatiha immediately admitted what she had done. She told the responders and later the detectives that she had planned the attack, bought the dagger online, and waited until the family went to sleep to carry out her plan. Detectives interviewed Fatiha at length. She told them she believed Seima had interfered with her relationship by talking to her online boyfriend. The arrest affidavit later confirmed this exact detail. Police documents, as well as news reports from NBC News and People, state clearly that Fatiha admitted the motive was connected to her fear of losing the online relationship. She also told investigators that she felt hurt and angry, and that these feelings built up over time until she chose a violent solution. After the interviews and the collection of evidence, Fatiha was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. She was taken to the Orange County Jail, where she awaited further legal action. The case quickly gained media attention because it involved 2 young sisters living under the same roof, yet trapped in a conflict that no one around them knew had grown so severe. The family, who had been asleep during the attack, woke to the devastating news that one daughter was gone and the other had been taken into custody for her death. Case 3. Matthew and Joseph Herkin, 2 brothers from New Jersey who once shared the same home, the same routines, and the same hopes for the future. But in early 2025, their story took a heartbreaking turn inside an apartment in Princeton. Matthew was 31, Joseph was 26, and both had grown up in New Jersey with strong ties to sports and school. Joseph played soccer for the University of Michigan, and Matthew played soccer at Wesleyan University. Their lives had been filled with accomplishments and support from their community, which is why the events of February 22, 2025, shocked everyone who knew them. Late that night, around 11:16 p.m., a 911 call came from inside the brothers' home at the Michelle Muse Apartments, a small residential complex located near Princeton University. When officers arrived, they found the apartment filled with signs of a struggle. Inside, they discovered Joseph's body, showing serious injuries from a sharp object and blunt force. Investigators located a knife and a golf club, which they believe were used during the attack. The family's cat was also found dead in the apartment, adding more sadness to an already devastating scene. Police say the 911 call had been made by Matthew himself, who stayed in the home until officers arrived. Detectives from the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office and the Homicide Task Force quickly began their work. After reviewing the scene and gathering early information, officials charged Matthew with first-degree murder, along with weapons offenses and animal cruelty charges. The news spread quickly across New Jersey and soon reached national headlines as people tried to understand how 2 brothers with bright futures could become the center of such a tragic case. Joseph Herkin was remembered by friends, former teammates, and family members as warm, hardworking, and deeply loved. Many came together for his funeral, sharing memories of his kindness, his focus in school, and his passion for sports. His death left a large space in the lives of those who knew him. Joseph had worked in finance after college and was known for helping others and caring deeply about his family. The thought that his life ended inside the home he shared with his own brother left many people speechless. Court documents show that Matthew appeared before a judge shortly after his arrest. During the hearing, he remained quiet, speaking only when asked. His attorney and the prosecutor agreed to allow more time for both sides to gather their information before the next hearing. While the court process moved forward, investigators continued asking questions and collecting evidence to piece together the full timeline of what happened inside the apartment before the 911 call was made. Officials have not publicly shared a motive. They have not explained what the brothers may have argued about or what emotional pressure may have been present inside the home. Without a clear motive, the community has been left with more questions than answers. People who knew the Herkins said the news did not make sense to them because the brothers had shown love and support for each other throughout their lives. Many said the tragedy shows how hidden stress or private struggles can grow quietly, even in homes that seem peaceful from the outside. If you found this video interesting so far, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for your support. Case 4. Alexandria and Anastasia Duval were identical twin sisters whose lives were deeply connected from birth. They shared a home, shared work, and shared many dreams. But they also carried a long history of arguments and stress that many people never understood. Before their names became known in Hawaii, they were born as Allison and Ann Dadow. They grew up on the mainland United States and later opened yoga studios in Florida. Their studios brought them attention and success, but the pressure of running a business also created tension between them. Even with these challenges, the sisters continued to stay close and moved from state to state together, hoping for a fresh start. By 2015, the twins had moved to Hawaii. Friends and neighbors said they hoped this move would bring peace and a new chapter. But the stress in their relationship continued. People who knew the sisters said their arguments could be loud and physical, and the two often struggled to stay calm around each other. Still, they remained together, showing how strong their connection was, even when their disagreements grew more intense. No one could imagine that the bond between the twins would soon end in tragedy on one of the most beautiful roads in Maui. On May 29, 2016, the sisters were driving along the Hana Highway, a winding road that runs beside tall cliffs and the ocean. Witnesses later told police that Alexandria and Anastasia were fighting inside their SUV. People reported seeing pushing, pulling, and loud arguing as the vehicle moved forward. Some said the struggle made the vehicle swerve before it went straight toward the edge. Moments later, the SUV drove off a cliff that dropped nearly 200 feet. The fall was deadly. Anastasia died at the scene. Alexandria survived but was injured and pulled from the wreckage. News of the crash spread quickly through Hawaii and across the country. Identical twins are often seen as inseparable, so the idea of one twin dying in such a dramatic way immediately raised questions. Police began gathering statements from people who saw the fight in the vehicle. They looked at the road, the angle of the SUV, and the speed. They also studied the past behavior of the sisters, including reports of earlier fights. As the details came together, police felt they had enough reason to believe the crash might not have been an accident. On June 3, 2016, Alexandria was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. According to ABC News and the Associated Press, police said she tried to leave Hawaii shortly after the crash, which increased suspicion. Alexandria said she had not harmed her sister and that the crash had happened because she lost control of the vehicle. She maintained that it was a terrible accident, not a crime. The case gained national attention as people tried to understand what truly happened during the sisters' final moments together. The case went to trial in early 2018. Alexandria chose not to have a jury. Instead, she asked a judge to decide the case. Witnesses described the fight in the SUV. Experts explained how the vehicle moved before it went over the cliff. Both sides presented their arguments, and the judge listened to every detail carefully. After reviewing all the information, the judge announced the decision on February 1, 2018. Alexandria Duval was found not guilty. According to news reports, the judge said the evidence did not prove that she purposely drove off the cliff. The court stated that while the sisters had a troubled relationship, the prosecution did not show beyond a reasonable doubt that Alexandria meant to harm Anastasia. With that ruling, Alexandria was released. Even though the court cleared her, the story of the Duval twins remains painful and confusing. Their relationship was full of deep love, but also deep conflict. Many people wondered how arguments that started years earlier could continue to grow until the final drive ended in loss. Case 5. Guiasi Stribbling stood before the court in Michigan after a case that left many people shaken. In 2021, he was a young adult living with his family in Southfield, sharing a home with siblings who looked up to him. Among them was 8-year-old Bailey Singleton, a joyful child who brought energy and warmth into the apartment. But an ordinary day inside that home turned into a tragedy that changed the lives of everyone connected to them. Guiasi, only 20 at the time, became responsible for a moment that would send him to prison for decades and leave his family grieving a loss they can never recover from. The incident happened on October 28, 2021. Reports from investigators described the day as routine until a small argument broke out between Guiasi and Baile. It was the kind of simple disagreement many siblings have, something that should have passed quickly. But inside that brief moment of frustration, Guiasi made a choice that carried permanent consequences. He picked up a gun that was inside the apartment. As emotions rose, he fired a single shot. That bullet struck Baile in the chest. The sound carried through the home, sending family members into panic as they rushed toward the room. Emergency services were called right away. When first responders arrived, they found Baile with a severe injury. She was taken to the hospital for immediate treatment, but the doctors could not save her. The news spread quickly through the household. A normal afternoon had turned into a nightmare that no family ever expects. The loss of an 8-year-old child is something that leaves a deep wound, and in this case, the pain was made even stronger by the fact that the person responsible was her own older brother. After the shooting, investigators interviewed Guiasi. He admitted to pulling the trigger. Prosecutors explained later that the shot was fired during a moment of emotional tension and poor decision-making, not during an accident that happened without awareness. Based on the information collected, the state charged him with second-degree murder and a felony firearm offense. These charges reflected the seriousness of the act, as well as the use of a gun in a family conflict. The case moved through the court system, while the community watched with sadness and disbelief. During the hearings, details of the argument, the gun use, and the emergency response became part of the public record. Family members described Baile as a fun, energetic girl who loved playing and spending time with the people around her. They shared memories of her bright personality and the joy she brought into their home. The courtroom felt the weight of a family torn apart by one afternoon's decision. The loss of a young child affects everyone who knew her, from relatives to neighbors who had seen her grow. In 2023, the court delivered its final sentence. Guiasi received 40 to 60 years in prison for second-degree murder, along with an additional 2 years for the firearm charge. This outcome reflected the seriousness of the crime and the irreversible nature of Baile's death. The judge explained that handling a gun during a household disagreement, especially with children present, carries enormous responsibility. The sentence was meant to show how dangerous it is when a firearm is used during a moment of anger. Case 6. Zachary Wittmann was a 15-year-old boy living in New Freedom, Pennsylvania, when a moment inside his home changed his family forever. On the afternoon of October 2, 1998, Zachary stabbed his 13-year-old brother, Gregory, in a shocking attack that left the community stunned. Gregory had just returned home from school. Within minutes, he was found in the laundry room with severe wounds that ended his life. The scene was heartbreaking for first responders who arrived after Zachary called 911 in a panicked voice, saying his brother was not breathing. This call was later shared in news reports and documentary coverage, showing the fear and confusion in Zachary's voice. Police began investigating the home right away. They found signs that Gregory had been stabbed many times with a small penknife. The wounds were so serious that it was clear the attack had been intense and sudden. Officers found gloves and a knife hidden outside in the backyard, and these items were linked to Zachary. Reporters later wrote that there was no sign of anyone else entering the home, which meant the focus stayed on the older brother from the very beginning. Over the next few years, the case moved through the courts. In 2003, Zachary was tried as an adult, even though he had been only 15 at the time of the killing. After hearing the evidence, a jury found him guilty of first-degree murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. This meant Zachary would never be released. His parents, who had already lost one son, now faced the reality that their other son would spend his life behind bars. The family's pain became part of the public conversation, especially as the case received national attention through articles, interviews, and later, a full documentary. For many years, Zachary remained in prison, always maintaining that the killing was not planned. But his legal situation changed when the United States Supreme Court made two important rulings. In 2012, the court said it was unconstitutional to give mandatory life without parole sentences to people who were under 18 at the time of their crime. In 2016, the court added that this rule must be applied to past cases as well. This meant that Zachary, who had been a teenager when Gregory died, was now allowed to return to court for a new sentence. In February 2018, Zachary stood before a judge again. This time, instead of a full trial, he agreed to a plea deal. In open court, he admitted that he stabbed his brother. He told the judge, "Yes, I can say I killed my brother by stabbing him." This statement was reported by WITF, People magazine, and other news outlets that closely followed the case. Because he accepted responsibility and because of the years he had already served, Zachary became eligible for release. In 2019, Zachary was officially released from prison. He had spent more than 20 years behind bars for something he did as a teenager. After leaving prison, he began building a new life. A later report from the York Dispatch revealed that Zachary was accepted into Columbia University's School of General Studies, where he started studying criminal justice. Case 7. Molly Bennett Smith's case that shocked the city of Bristol and raised painful questions about sibling conflict, quiet resentment, and the way hidden emotions can grow over time. Molly was only 17 years old when he took the life of his older sister, 19-year-old Lucas Bennett Smith, inside their family home in the St. Andrews area of Bristol on the 20th of October 2024. The two siblings had grown up together, spent their daily lives in the same house, and shared routines like many brothers and sisters. But beneath their everyday interactions, Molly had been holding on to years of negative feelings that no one around him fully understood. On the afternoon of the killing, the siblings were at home without their parents. According to evidence presented in court and confirmed by Avon and Somerset police, Molly asked Lucas if he could practice a headlock on her. This was something the two had done before, and Lucas agreed under the condition that she could tap his arm to make him stop. She gave the signal for him to release her, but he did not. Instead, the situation grew tense, and Molly held his grip. The moment shifted quickly from what seemed like harmless practice to something Lucas could no longer control. After releasing her, Molly went to the kitchen, picked up a knife, returned to the room, and stabbed Lucas several times. Court records state that Lucas suffered multiple wounds and collapsed from her injuries. She died inside the home before help arrived. The timeline of the incident shows that nearly 20 minutes passed before Molly called emergency services. When he finally phoned, he immediately told the operator that he had stabbed his sister. The call was short and direct, and emergency responders rushed to the address. Despite their efforts, they could not save Lucas. Police officers arrested Molly at the scene. During questioning, he admitted to the attack and explained that he had felt frustrated with his sister for a long time. Reports from Sky News and The Guardian describe how he told investigators he found Lucas annoying and felt she had treated him badly over the years. He did not describe a specific event or recent argument that triggered the attack. Instead, he spoke about a long history of resentment that had built up in silence until it reached a breaking point that afternoon. When the case reached Bristol Crown Court, more information emerged about Molly's personal background. The court heard that he struggled with severe dyslexia and dysgraphia, two conditions that made schoolwork extremely challenging for him. His learning difficulties, combined with limited social interaction outside the home, led to long periods spent alone, mainly playing video games. The judge noted that Molly's world had become very small, with few friends and limited experiences outside the family home. These factors did not excuse the attack but helped explain the pressure he faced and his limited ability to manage complex emotions. The court also learned that Molly had difficulties expressing frustration in healthy ways. Reports showed that he rarely opened up about his feelings, even when those feelings grew stronger over time. His silence created a space where resentment could continue building without being addressed. By the time of the attack, Molly was overwhelmed, and the steps he took that afternoon showed how quickly an emotional breaking point can turn dangerous. On 10 March 2025, Molly pleaded guilty to Lucas' murder. At sentencing, the judge described the attack as severe and heartbreaking. The court emphasized that Luca had lost her life in her own home, a place where she should have been safe. Molly was given a life sentence, with a minimum term of 10 years and 5 months before he can be considered for release. The judge acknowledged Molly's learning difficulties and personal challenges, but made it clear that the act itself required a strong sentence. Case 8. Yurelli Solorio Rivera is the subject of a heartbreaking story, a case from Fresno, California, that left a family broken and a community shocked. On September 24, 2022, police found her 18-year-old sister, Yurelli Solorio Rivera, and Yaneli's 3-week-old baby, Celine, shot inside their home. These were 2 young lives, one just beginning adulthood and one only days old. According to official reports from the Fresno County District Attorney, both mother and baby were found in their bedroom, and investigators later said the attack happened while they slept. What followed was a long search for answers that led officers back to someone inside the home, Yurelli. From the start, police knew something was very wrong. There were no signs of a break-in, and nothing in the home suggested a robbery. Family members told officers that Yurelli had been caring for her newborn every day, trying to keep her close and safe. But according to the DA's report and statements given to ABC 30, the investigation uncovered painful information. Detectives learned that Yurelli and her boyfriend, Martin Arroyo Morales, were both involved in the planning and carrying out of the shooting. Phone records, statements, and other evidence showed that this was not a sudden act, but something prepared in advance. Prosecutors said jealousy and long-standing tension between the sisters played a major part in the case. The Fresno County Sheriff's Office arrested Yurelli and Arroyo Morales on November 9, 2022, nearly 7 weeks after the killings. This followed weeks of collecting evidence, interviewing family members, and connecting the events of that early morning. Reports from CBS News and the Los Angeles Times explained that investigators linked the gun used in the killings to Arroyo Morales. Prosecutors said messages and actions showed that Yurelli encouraged the attack and helped plan it. Due to the age of the baby, both suspects were charged with 2 counts of murder with special circumstances, which is among the most serious charges in California. In court filings, the DA explained that special circumstances were added because the victims included a baby and because the murders were planned. These circumstances allow the court to impose extremely long sentences if the suspects are found guilty. At the first hearing, both suspects were ordered to remain in jail without bail, and the community followed the case closely as new details came out. Neighbors and extended family were shocked that the harm came from inside the home rather than from a stranger. As months passed, the legal process continued, and more evidence became public. Reports from ABC 30 described how detectives said Yurelli helped set up the home so the attack could happen without noise or interruption. This detail was especially painful for many people following the case because it showed how deeply the conflict had grown between the sisters. While many families have disagreements or emotions that rise and fall, this situation became something far more dangerous and tragic. Sierra and baby Celine lost their lives before they had a chance to build their future. By 2025, the Fresno Bee reported that Yurelli Solorio Rivera was sentenced to 2 life terms in prison for her role in the killings. Arroyo Morales also received a long sentence after entering a plea agreement. With both suspects convicted, the case reached its legal conclusion, but for the family, the emotional impact is something that cannot be undone. The home that once held 2 young lives now holds memories of loss, and the remaining family members must carry those memories forward. Case 9. Lucas Christian Delaney's sad story unfolded in Sydney, Australia in June 2020. Lucas was 20 years old, and he lived with his younger sister, Gabriella Delaney, who had just turned 20. Their home was in Cambridge Park, a quiet part of Sydney's west. Gabriella's family in Western Australia became worried when they could not reach her for several days. They called the police to check on her, hoping everything was fine. But when officers entered the home on June 10, 2020, they found Gabriella had lost her life inside her bedroom after suffering strong blows to her head. Investigators quickly focused on Lucas, who was not at the house when police arrived. Reports later showed that Lucas had stayed in different places after the attack and eventually checked himself into a hospital for medical help. Police soon arrested him and charged him with killing his sister using a hammer. The news shocked the community because Gabriella was known as a sweet young woman who cared deeply about her family. People who knew her described her as gentle, warm, and full of hope. She had moved to Sydney to live with Lucas, and no one expected their time together to end so painfully. As police gathered information, the facts became clearer. Court documents stated that Lucas used a hammer to hurt Gabriella inside the home. The injuries were very serious, leaving her with no chance to survive. Investigators described the scene as one of the hardest they had faced that year. The early reports did not explain the exact reason the siblings argued or what happened in the moments leading up to the attack, but the NSW Supreme Court later said the violence was extreme. The judge used strong words to describe how much harm was done, calling the act vicious and brutal. When the case moved to court, Lucas chose to plead guilty to murder. This meant he accepted responsibility for causing his sister's death. In court, the judge listened to doctors, lawyers, and investigators. Reports showed that Lucas had a history of mental health struggles and drug use, which were discussed during the hearing. Even so, the judge said the level of harm was very high and required a serious sentence. The court also acknowledged the pain felt by Gabriella's parents, who shared their heartbreak in statements read during the hearing. On October 13, 2022, the NSW Supreme Court announced Lucas's sentence. He was given 21 years in prison, with a non-parole period of 15 years and 9 months. This means Lucas must stay in prison until at least 2036 before he can ask for release. The judge explained that the sentence needed to reflect the loss of Gabriella's life, protect the community, and recognize the seriousness of the attack. The judge also explained that Lucas's mental health issues were considered but did not excuse the level of harm done. After the sentencing, Gabriella's family spoke through reporters. They said they were still trying to understand how such a gentle young woman could lose her life in such a painful way. They shared memories of her kindness, her bright smile, and the future she never got to experience. Her parents described their feelings as numb and confused, saying they wished they could have helped her sooner. The community of Cambridge Park also expressed deep sadness. Many people said the case reminded them of how important it is to reach out for help when family conflict becomes too stressful. Lucas's imprisonment also became a point of discussion across Sydney. The case raised questions about mental health, family stress, and the lack of early support for young people struggling at home. Experts in criminal justice said the case showed how dangerous situations can grow when personal struggles are left untreated. Although the court recognized Lucas's mental health issues, the final ruling made it clear that the level of violence required a very long sentence. Case 10. Kathleen and Susan Worrall's case shows how small disagreements inside a family can grow into something no one ever expects. Kathleen was 22 years old, and her younger sister Susan was 18. They lived together with their family in Strathfield, a quiet suburb in Sydney. Like many sisters close in age, they shared almost everything: routines, responsibilities, and the usual small disagreements that happen in many homes. They cared about each other, but they also experienced stress that slowly built up over time. Their home life carried more pressure than anyone outside the family could easily see. In October 2008, a simple disagreement between the sisters turned into something far more serious. News reports and court records later explained that their arguments were often about small things, such as using the family's internet or borrowing a hair straightener. These moments might seem minor, but inside a home where stress is already growing, even small problems can feel very heavy. On this particular day, the argument grew fast, and emotions rose past the point where either sister could calm down. What should have been another short disagreement became the start of a life-changing tragedy. During this heated moment, Kathleen lost control of her emotions. She acted in distress and grabbed a knife. In the middle of that sudden burst of anger, she attacked her sister. Susan suffered several injuries and did not survive. When police reached the home, they found Kathleen still there, shocked and unable to fully understand what she had just done. Officers arrested her on the spot. The community around them struggled to accept what happened. Neighbors and friends found it difficult to imagine how two sisters who spent almost every day together could reach such a painful ending. As the case moved into the court system, more information emerged that helped explain the emotional pressure Kathleen had been facing. Reports shared during the hearings explained that Kathleen struggled with significant health concerns. She had a rare hormonal disorder called congenital adrenal hyperplasia, CAH. This condition affects the body's ability to maintain proper hormone levels. When Kathleen did not take her medication consistently, her emotional balance was affected, and the disorder made it harder for her to respond calmly during conflict. She also had an existing mood disorder. Together, these issues greatly influenced her judgment and behavior on the day of the argument. The details did not remove responsibility, but they gave the court a clearer picture of why Kathleen reacted the way she did. Instead of facing a murder charge, she pleaded guilty to manslaughter, and the Crown accepted this plea based on substantial impairment. This meant the court recognized that her medical and mental health conditions played a major role in the way her emotions escalated. The judge listened carefully to the evidence, including descriptions of the sisters' daily lives, their closeness, and the many pressures they shared at home. During sentencing, the court also heard that Kathleen had always shown deep regret over what happened. She understood that her actions had taken the life of someone she loved, and she struggled with that reality. The judge accepted that she did not intend to cause lasting harm, but became overwhelmed during the argument. Kathleen was sentenced to a maximum of 6 years in prison, with a non-parole period of 4 years. The story became even more heartbreaking as time passed. In August 2010, less than 2 months after starting her sentence, Kathleen died in prison from a pulmonary embolism, which is a blood clot. Reports noted that this medical emergency was connected to her underlying health problems. Her death brought another layer of sadness to a case already filled with pain. The Worrall family lost both daughters, one to violence and one to illness, within a short period. Case 11. Gazala Khan was an 18-year-old woman living in Denmark who dreamed of making her own choices and building a life based on love and respect. In September 2005, she made a decision that she believed would bring her happiness. She married the man she loved, a young man named Emal Khan. But this important step in her life brought strong anger from her family, especially her brother. They did not accept her marriage. And this anger grew until it led to one of the most tragic and well-known honor-killing cases in Denmark. Gazala married Emal on September 21, 2005. The two knew that her family did not support the marriage, so they tried to stay safe and start fresh on their own. But the pressure around them grew quickly. Her family felt that she had gone against their wishes and their traditions. Instead of accepting her choice, several relatives began planning ways to bring her back under their control. Reports later showed that these discussions happened quietly, involving different members of the family who believed they had the right to decide Gazala's future. After 3 days of trying to stay out of sight, Gazala and Emal agreed to meet her family on September 24, 2005, in the town of Slagelse. They hoped the meeting would calm the situation. They hoped that maybe with time and conversation the family would accept their marriage. But sadly, the meeting was not meant to bring peace. It was a trap that had already been planned by several family members who wanted to punish Gazala for choosing her husband without their approval. As Gazala and Emal walked toward the meeting place, her brother approached them with a gun. Court records later confirmed that the shooting was not sudden or random. It was planned. Gazala's brother fired several shots at her. She collapsed to the ground, fatally wounded. Emal was also shot, but he survived his injuries. The people nearby were shocked. Some tried to help, while others called for emergency services. Paramedics arrived, but Gazala could not be saved. She died there in Slagelse, just 3 days after marrying the man she loved. The police launched a major investigation, which quickly uncovered the truth. It was not just her brother acting alone. Several relatives took part in planning the attack. Some helped arrange the meeting. Some assisted in preparing the steps that led to the killing. Others supported the plan in different ways. Danish authorities discovered a network of family involvement, making the case much larger than a single act of violence. In 2006, the Danish court delivered its ruling. It became one of the biggest honor-killing cases in the country's history. 9 family members, including Gazala's brother and father, were found guilty of their roles in the murder. The court explained that the killing was planned because Gazala chose her own husband, and the family wanted to punish her for that choice. The case made headlines across Denmark and Europe because it showed how dangerous family pressure can become when love and personal freedom are denied. Gazala's story affected many people across Denmark. She was only 18. She wanted to live her own life. She hoped for support, safety, and understanding. But instead, she faced anger and violence from the very people who should have protected her. Her name became a symbol of the fight for the rights of young women who wished to make their own choices about love and marriage. The father was sentenced to life imprisonment for ordering the murder, and the brother who carried out the shooting received a 16-year jail term. Other individuals, including uncles and an aunt who tricked Gazala into coming to the station for a supposed reconciliation, received sentences ranging from 8 to 14 years. Case 12. Jaylen Jones's actions on March 10, 2021, show how fast anger can turn a small problem into something that hurts everyone. Jaylen, who was 23 years old at the time, lived in Riverdale, a town in Clayton County, Georgia. On that day, he and his older brother got into an argument that began with something very small. Even though the problem was tiny, the anger between them grew so quickly that the situation turned into a tragedy that no one in the family ever expected. The problem began because Jaylen's older brother thought Jaylen had thrown away his bottle of body wash. It was just a simple household item, something many people would not think twice about. But inside the home, feelings were rising, and both brothers were upset. Their voices became louder, and the argument became harder to control. Someone else in the home tried to help and stepped between them. For a short moment, it looked like the fight might stop. The house became a little quieter, and things seemed calmer. But the quiet did not last. The heavy feelings in the room stayed, and the argument started again. This second round of arguing was stronger, louder, and filled with frustration. Jaylen felt overwhelmed with anger, and instead of walking away to cool down, he made a choice that changed everything. According to what he later told detectives and what police wrote in their reports, Jaylen stepped away from the argument and went into his bedroom. Instead of choosing calm, he picked up a gun. Jaylen then returned to where his brother was standing. The argument was still happening, and the emotions were still high. In that intense moment, Jaylen fired the gun several times at his brother. It happened very fast, so fast that the people in the home barely had time to understand what was going on. When the shots stopped, the home was filled with shock. A disagreement that started with a missing bottle of body wash had turned into something no one could ever take back. When officers from the Clayton County Police Department arrived, they quickly began investigating what had happened. Jaylen was found and taken into custody less than a full day later. During his interview with detectives, he explained how the argument started and confirmed that he went to get the gun before returning to shoot his brother. These details were included in the official police report and shared by news outlets at the time. After his arrest, Jaylen was charged with very serious crimes, including malice murder. He was also charged with trying to get rid of the gun after the shooting. Because of the seriousness of the case, the judge decided that Jaylen would not be allowed to leave jail before the trial, so he was held without bond at the Clayton County Jail. The case received a lot of attention because people were shocked that such a small problem, like a missing bottle of body wash, could lead to such a heartbreaking result. Many people talked about how anger can grow very fast, especially during stressful moments, and how important it is to step away and calm down before making a choice that can never be undone. Some people in the community later shared messages online saying that Jaylen received a 70-year prison sentence. However, this number has not been officially confirmed by trusted news organizations or official court records that can be checked by the public. What is confirmed is Jaylen's arrest, the charges he faced, and the fact that he was held in jail without bond. If you enjoyed watching this crime documentary, please subscribe to my channel. I create and post interesting true crime videos on the channel every day. Thank you for watching.